just did the first page, so don't worry. And we'll go over it. Yesterday we asked, based on the mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe from Taf Reish Tzadi Ches, right? From, what did we say that was? 1937. The Frierdiker Rebbe's mimer 1937, where the Frierdiker Rebbe was discussing Hanukkah. One thing I didn't tell you about the mimer, there is an interesting little piece of information about that mimer. The Frierdiker Rebbe would say mimer on Shabbos. So if you look in Sefer Maimar Taf Reish Tzadi Ches, you'll notice it says Shabbos and Yom Gimel. But the Maimar was said on Shabbos and Tuesday. So why would it be said Tuesday? So there was a chassid. His name was Shmuel Krull. I guess in English you'd spell it Krull probably. He was a chassid from Galicia. Was not originally a Lubavitcher. Somehow came to Lubavitch. I know nothing about this man other than I've heard his name relative to this story. Nothing else about him. Evidently, I did hear when I heard him for bringing this story. So they said he was evidently a very fascinating person. Okay, and he had a Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe. After the Rebbe said this mimer on Shabbos Chanukah in Taf Reish Tzadi Ches, right in 1937, like we talked about yesterday. And so the Rebbe smiled and said, "My mimer on Shabbos. You know, if you'd been here Shabbos, you would have heard a mimer." So he said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, "By me, if I'm by the Rebbe, it's Bechina Shabbos. It's Shabbos when I'm by the Rebbe. Meaning it's Tuesday, but for me it's Shabbos." So the Rebbe went and got a shtreimel and put on his Shabbos coat and said, the same mimer to him again, alone in the office on Tuesday. And for that reason, it's written in the book that the mimer was said on Shabbos and on Tuesday. Right? He got his own private mimer. The Rebbe tells the story and says that you see that Chassidim can cause the Rebbeim to say mimer. Test Kislev Tafshin Chafei, they didn't want to come out to Fabring for whatever reason. And it just wasn't going to Fabring. I have no idea why. And Shmuel Levitin came to the Rebbe and said, he talked in that on Test Kislev, the Rebbe's not going to Fabring. The Rebbe asked to Fabring. The Rebbe came out to Fabring. And the Chassidim asked, the Rebbe came out to Fabring. Okay, so what questions did we ask yesterday? We had two basic questions. Two basic questions. Right? We hadn't really seen the second one yet, I don't believe, but we know it's there. It's about to be asked in the beginning of Oz Beis. In Hanukkah, there are three miracles. There's the victory of the war on the 24th of Kislev. There's finding the Pach Shemen on the 25th of Kislev. And there's the miracle of the fact that the Shemen kept burning, meaning that they had Shemen to... Exactly how the miracle of the Shemen lasting 8 days worked. So that itself is a fascinating question, because what happened? That they burnt all the oil the first night. And then the next... it had to go out. You have to light the next night. So it was full... and they just lit it again the next night. It burnt, but it didn't burn. That's one position. Another position is, and the Rebbe negates this position, says it can't be, for a very fascinating reason, that every day when they went to light, it was miraculously full of oil again. But the Rebbe says a rather amazing thing, that is very much the Rebbe's type of question, that can't be. Because it says in the Torah it has to be Shemen Zayis, it has to be Shemen from an olive, not miraculous Shemen. But Shemen from an olive. And this isn't Shemen from an olive. This is miraculous Shemen that just showed up. So exactly how it all worked is very, very interesting and hard to understand. The Ritva is easy, right? If you remember, some of you, the Ritva's position on how it worked was they only put an eighth of the oil in every day, because they knew they were going to have to wait 8 days for oil. So just to light the menorah without really doing the mitzvah properly, but at least lighting the menorah every day as a zecher to lighting the menorah the way it should be lit. So they put in an eighth of the oil every day, but that oil burnt all night. That was the miracle. Now, according to that position, there was actually a miracle of the oil also on the 25th. Right? But the basic miracle of the oil is on the 26th. not finding it. We found it on the 25th, which was miraculous. But we lit it again on the 26th, and that was miraculous because there shouldn't have been any oil, but there was. However, it worked out that there was oil. That miracle starts on the 26th. Right? So our Rebbe's question, based again on the mimer of the previous Rebbe from Tafresh Tzadiches 1927. Why is it that we celebrate Hanukkah on a quarter? One more point that's important because the Rebbe dealt with this. There are two positions as to what the essential nace of Hanukkah is: the victory in the war or the oil, the neris, the candles. So, according to the position that the victory in the war, and this is how the Frierdiker Rebbe is learning, according to the position that says the victory in the war was the essential miracle, why, according to that position, would we not celebrate Hanukkah on the 24th? Because that's when we won the war. Okay, that was our question. Right? According to the position, it says that the Ikar miracle is the nearest. Meaning, is there one miracle or two that we're celebrating? Is the basic question, right? And in that machlokes, not our question, right? The Rebbe made that clear. So we spent a long time talking about that yesterday. Our Rebbe is not asking the question which is the essential miracle. Our Rebbe is learning, like the Frierdiker Rebbe in his mimer, that the essential miracle is the victory in the war, because without the victory in the war, nothing else would have happened. Therefore, why don't we celebrate on the 24th? That's the Rebbe's question. Okay, the 24th is the victory of the war. The 25th is finding the Pach Shemen. The 26th is the miracle with the Shemen lasting. Okay, voice base. Before we get to the answer, which is, you see, the basic point, the noise Gimel, first noise base on page Kuf. Mamshich b'maimer, he continues in the mimer. Again, as usual, our Rebbe is learning a mimer of one of the previous Rebbeim, in this case, which is more often the case, the previous Rebbe. That in the miracle of the oil itself, there are two miracles. Hanes shematzu pach echad shemen tahor chosum b'choisma shel kohen gadol. The one nace that they found, this one flask, and again, I mean, we said this week, this is our second Hanukkah mimer, right? For those of you who weren't around, so we already talked about the fact that what they found was not some little flask this big hidden in the corner, because they had to fill up 7 bowls this big. So obviously there was a lot of oil in that jug. So they found a jug that hadn't been defiled. That itself was a miracle. Though the word matzu is going to be an important word in understanding what the panemius of that miracle is. They found it. Right? They were looking, but they found it. Shematzu pach echad shemen tar chosim b'chayis shel kohen gadol. They were sealed with the seal of the kohen gadol. Sheneis zed, this miracle, the Metzias pach Hashem, of finding it, haya b'chafei Kislev. That was on the 25th of Kislev. V'neis shaloi haya b'yel lahadlik yirmecha. And the nace, the second miracle of the oil, of course, is that there wasn't in that oil enough but for one day. And they lit from that oil 7 days, 8 days. Exactly how that worked. So that's a fascinating question. The nace zeh huschal b'chaf vav b'kislev. That simply this nace began on the 26th, because there wasn't a need for a miracle on the 25th. Umadayik b'maimer, and he is careful in reading. He asks a careful question in the mind. The Frierdiker Rebbe, mipnei ma loy hukva eza tosofes davar. Why is it that when Hanukkah was the next year, when Hanukkah was proclaimed a holiday, was there not also some additional reality b'yom chavav b'kislev that happens on the 26th of Kislev relative to the extra miracle? Why didn't we commemorate that miracle somehow? Right? We don't. Now, that doesn't mean we do a mitzvah lighting the licht, but we light the licht every day. There's nothing special about the 26th. Shaboy Uschal, that day it began, Nes Haspakas Hashem and Lishmeni Yomim, that's the day that the the nace of the oil of 7 days started. Okay, so now we have two basic questions. Why don't we celebrate why don't we start the holiday on the 24th, because that's when we won the war? Why is there not some special mention of the unique character of the 26th of Kislev when the miracle of the 8 days started? Right, because as again, we talked about when we learned our last Hanukkah Mimer, the miracle of the oil was only 7 days. There was enough oil for 1 day, right? And of course, what are the three shittas? Everybody knows now. What are the three shittas in Rishonim explaining why Hanukkah is an 8-day holiday, not a 7-day holiday, even though the miracle of the oil was only 7 days because there was enough oil for 1 day?
The bulls of Sukkot. The sacrifices on Sukkot.
Oh, that's how we know how to light. That's true. But why is it an 8-day holiday?
It's beyond the natural order.
Okay, that's also true, but why is it 8 days?
7 is for nature and...
Everything you're saying is true. You're just not answering my question. My question was not why is it an 8-day holiday in terms of the panemius of it and what does 8 represent. I'm asking a very simple question. The miracle with the oil was a 7-day miracle. We have an 8-day holiday. Why should we celebrate 8 days? There's only 7 days of miracle. 3 answers we saw in Rishonim. What were they?
Maybe because the war.
Maybe? Ooh, that makes me nervous. You say maybe. The war, thank you. The Rambam didn't say maybe. I don't think the Rambam said maybe about anything, right? The Rambam was a pretty definite person, Baruch Hashem. The Rambam says that the extra day is celebrating the victory in the war, which relative to our mimers, it plays into the question that we're asking. So if that's the case, so Taka started in Chav Dalet. Okay, now in all fairness, it is true the 8 days of miracle of the oil, the 7 days of miracle, ended on the 8th day, meaning Chav Hey, there was no miracle. Then Chav Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, was there a Lamed, wasn't there a Lamed, Aleph, Beit, those 7 days were the days, so it's reasonable to light those 7 days. But according to the Rambam, the extra day is celebrating the victory in the war. No? The Ritva says what we just said earlier about that we only lit an 8th every day, and every day there was a miracle because it lasted all night. And the Meiri? Beautiful. Finding the Pach Shemin. Well done. Okay, those are the three basic shittas in Rishonim as to why it is that we celebrate an 8-day holiday. Okay? Now, that, of course, those questions are all based on the understanding of the other shita that we learned about yesterday, that the Iker Nes is the Shem. That question is only a question if the essential Nes is the Shem. Right? Because the Shemin was only a 7-day miracle. There was enough Shemin for 1 day. Okay, so why do we celebrate for 8 days? Okay, Rambam, we add a day, victory in the war. Meiri, we add a day, the miracle of finding the Pach Shemin on the first day. So even the first day wasn't a miracle in terms of the Shemin burning, it was a miracle having found it in the first place. And the Ritva, the interesting sheet of lighting an 8 every day. So there were actually 8 days of miracle. Okay, so 3 days, Chav Dalet, and I'm saying this a lot. Why? Well, because wait until you see what's going to happen. Chav Dalet, Chav Hey, Chav Vav. Okay. Now, we're going to have to read, without necessarily understanding exactly what we're reading, about 6-7 lines to see what's here. Then we'll go back to the beginning and explain what each level is. Because the Rebbe is going to now describe 3 different levels in the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One is going to correspond to Chav Dalet, one is going to correspond to Chav Hey, and one is going to correspond to Chav Vav. These 3 levels of Hanukkah. Okay, and we said this mimer is really more about the unity of Hashem than it is about Hanukkah. Although there's an incredible question once we've discussed and understood the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on these 3 different levels that goes back to Hanukkah. The Rebbe says an incredible chiddush. Okay. So now, I'm going to just basically translate without really explaining for just 6-7 lines. And we're going to go back and learn these 6-7 lines again. Okay? But we have to see what's here. Nukuda Zabir Bezeba Maimer. The point of explanation of this in the Maimer, in the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer. The Neis, the Nitzchot, Nitzachon, and Milchama, the miracle of the victory in the war, Hu Yehuda Tata, it corresponds to lower level of unity. which is the unity of God revealed in the created world. So we'll talk about it at length. Vanes the Metzias Pach Shemen Tahor, and the miracle of finding the Pach Shemen, Hu Yechudi Ilah, is upper level unity. Right? Now, those two notions of unity, upper level, we'll talk about that at greater length because that requires more words to explain. Upper level unity is the idea of the nullification of the existence of the world. Okay? Now, Shayuchad Vamuna and Tanya, the second part of Tanya, is based on explaining Yehudi Ilah and Yehudi Tatah. That's what the whole book is about. Upper level unity, lower level unity. Where do you see in something you do every day a few times an expression of upper level unity? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Upper level unity. We'll discuss that. We're going to talk about it. Don't worry. I'm just throwing that out there because it's going to come. So we'll just have a bunch of variables that we're going to have to figure out. And how do you express lower level unity? Baruch Shem Kaved Malchus Le'olam Va'ed. B'diuk, you say that quietly. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say that. Right? That's not in Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad v'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. We say Baruch Shem. What's that? One state of unity, Hashem Echad v'ein Sheni. There's nothing else. Right? Even though we'll see that itself is an interesting level. And the other level, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchusa. He's the Melech. His Malchus. What is Malchus? Ein Melech b'loi am. There's no king without a people. So there's a people. There's some aspect of the existence of the world. The world does exist. But that world exists solely to express the greatness of God. Then there's a level of the world being nullified by the greatness of God, so to speak. Nullified by the light. The light is so powerful. Okay, so we're going to go through that. We're just seeing the levels so far. And the Rebbe is going to now bring Shema Yisrael. He's also going to say something very interesting about Shema Yisrael. So we just said the Melchama is Chaf Dalet. Vanes the Metzias Pach Shemen, and the miracle of Pach Shemen was Chaf Hey. Why did they fall out on those 2 days? So the Rebbe says an amazing thing, which of course we're going to have to understand. Ki mispar Chaf Dalet, the number Chaf Dalet, 24, Remes, hints, a gematria is a hint, a remez, doesn't explain things, it just shows you there's a connection between things, and you have to explain that connection. Ki mispar Chaf Dalet, Remes, al Yehuda Tato, lower level unity. Why? Keneged Chaf Dalet ha'osia shebaruch Shem kaved malchus le'olam va'ed. How many letters are there in that statement, Baruch Shem kaved malchus le'olam va'ed, which we say quietly, because having just proclaimed that all that exists ultimately is Hashem, we're embarrassed to say, well, we really do exist, but we're trying to hopefully express that existence, use that existence to serve you. We say that quietly. Right? On Yom Kippur, say it loud. Why? That's a separate issue and not for that. Okay, so how many letters in Baruch Shem? 24. That's the Milchama. That's the 24th of Kislev. How many? Guess. How many letters in Shema Yisrael? Guess. 25. Exactly. That's the next level.
Nice.
All right. Umispar Chaf Hey Remez al Yehudi Ilah hints to the notion of upper level unity. Keneged Chaf Hey ha'osia shebapasuk Shema Yisrael, etc. Hashem that correspond to the 25 letters in the pasuk Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. V'hanes daspakas Hashemen l'shmeinu yomim, and the nace of the oil lasting. Haspakat. Haspakat means to supply, right? But it also is enough. It was a speak. The fact that the Shemen lasted for 8 days. Shehischil b'chaf vav kislev. That started on chaf vav. Chaf vav b'gematria shem havaya. That is the numerical value of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the Rebbe is going to explain that there's a level of Yud Kei Vav Kei hu l'mayla gam mi Yehudi Ilah, which is even higher than the level of upper level unity. Now, let's figure out the first 2 levels first. We'll start reading again from the beginning. But we have to explain Yehuda Tata and Yehuda Ilah. Because there are two other ways of explaining those two ideas, which are going to be mentioned in the next couple of lines. But I think we have to just, be limited in how much we read without understanding it all. Right? Okay. There's two other ways of explaining Yehuda Ilah and Yehuda Tata. In terms of our avodah, what's called bittul hayesh, nullifying created existence, or bittul b'metzias, an existence of bittul, an existence of nullification. Okay, now first bittul. Bittul is a word, livatel means to nullify, right? The English translation, I think, in Tanya for bittul is self-abnegation, which I don't think anybody knows what abnegation is. So that's a very good way to translate it so that no one can catch you on a bad translation because no one knows what you said. Okay, now sometimes it's probably also written as self-nullification. What does that mean? That means that I'm worthless, nothing, and a waste of time, and I'm so low that I have to look up to see down. That is not what it means. It is completely and totally contrary to such an idea. Right? That's the opposite of bittul. A person who says that about himself is a big yesh. All he thinks about is himself and his own lowliness. He's completely and totally absorbed in his own lowliness, and he loves it. He just loves being miserable about his own lowliness. It's not bittul, it's absolute yesh. What's yesh? What's the difference between bittul and yesh? Bittul is, it's a mindset. What's your agenda? Oh, so if someone who's batal, what's his agenda? His agenda is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's agenda. His agenda in life is what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants out of him. That's his agenda in life. Right? As a chassid, so he'll also put the Rebbe into that equation because he understands that what the Rebbe wants from him is what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants from him, and the Rebbe is the one who helps him understand exactly what it is that a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants from him as an individual, as part of a community, living in a particular time in the history of the world, etc. Okay, so I'll trust the Rebbe to understand what it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. But bittul means, that doesn't mean that I'm a nothing. Adarabah, if I'm batal, I'll actually accomplish much more in life because I'm not going to be worried about what other people think about me and what the social standards are. I'm going to do that which is true because it's true. But that's all within the context of my own existence. And that's called bittul yesh. I'm a yesh. I exist. I'm aware of my own existence. I'm aware of my own existence as something that feels, even though I know this isn't true, but I feel separate from my maker. I know that my existence, intellectually, I understand that my existence is completely, I wish I were talking about myself, okay? I'm just talking about the guy who's really batal, okay? That I understand that my existence is really completely and totally a function of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ongoing energizing of me, right? That God's light clothed in me is giving me constant energy, and that I have no true independence from Him. I know that. But I'm still aware of my own existence, and I'm trying to express that existence within the context of God's will. I am, but I want to be a vehicle for the expression of His will. That's called bittul yesh. And that's what most of us are struggling to do. That's the level of avodah that you and I are involved in. Tzaddikim don't live there. Right? Tzaddikim live on a higher level. Right? And that's Yehuda Tata. Yehuda Tata is bringing about a revelation of unity in the lower realms. I'm in the lower realms. I experience the lower realms. I'm very powerfully aware of the existence of the lower realms, meaning created reality. But I understand that created reality ultimately is there to reveal godliness and not to reveal itself. That's called Yehuda Tata. And that's our basic avodah. Yeah?
Would you say that's similar or the same as like what you said Kabbalah all? Maybe I didn't say it.
Kabbalah Soul? Yeah, it's definitely a function of that, yes. Kabbalah Soul is definitely in there in Yehuda Tata. Right? I am, and I might even have certain desires of my own that aren't necessarily in line with the Kadosh Baruch Hu's, but I don't act upon them, I don't think about them, and do that which a Kadosh Baruch Hu asks because I realize that that's what life is really all about. But I'm very powerfully aware of the existence around me and fact that there is a reality of world. Right? Okay. So that's Yikudat Tato. And that's what most of us experience. I mean, that's what most of us are, in terms of our avoid, and that's called bittul yesh. That's what most of us are trying to express. What's yesh? Yesh is that aspect of you and I that obviously comes from our Nefesh from our animals. So that aspect of you and I that will see life as an expression of self. That doesn't mean I'm a bad guy and I'm doing terrible things and I'm a selfish, horrible, disgusting person. Not at all. But everything I do is understood within the context of how that helps me express myself within the context of the agenda that I've set for myself in my life. My agenda. Now my agenda might include Shabbos and Torah and mitzvahs and learning, and I want to be a big Talmud Chacham because that would be nice. And I want to be considered one of the most religious people in the community because that would be nice. Okay? But why am I doing that? Because that's good for me. That's how I understand what would be best for me. Okay, so now that person's not a bad person, he's a very good person, but he's a yesh. There's a lot of yesh there.
It seems like they're antithetical, like the two, bittul and yesh.
They're antithetical, absolutely. What are we trying to be mevatel? Yesh. 100%. But where does that bittul happen? Within the context of an experience of yesh. I don't stop experiencing my own existence in the context of bittul yesh. Tzaddikim barely are aware of their own existence. Meaning, obviously, intellectually, they're aware of the fact that they're there. And if you call them up to the Torah, they have a name and they can tell you their name. They know their name. But their experience of reality is an experience of bittul. Therefore, their whole metzias, that's called bittul b'metzias, that's the higher level, which I was going to also mention. Bittul b'metzias is the level of Yehudi Ilah, where the experience of the lower created reality is very, very, very subtle. I'm aware of it intellectually, but am I experiencing it? No, what's the tzaddik experiencing? Elokus. So now when he looks at you, what does he see? He sees a neshama. What does that mean? He sees you glowing? No. He sees physical reality in a completely different way. Of course, he knows you have hands and eyes, and you're not this thing of light standing in front of him that everybody looks the same. No, he sees reality exactly the same way you do. That he sees the externals of reality exactly, but he just appreciates the internal reality of that as being an expression of godly reality and not created reality. And he'll see that about everything in Olam Hazeh, which is really quite an amazing way of living. But that's where tzaddikim are. Right, so what do we say about Moshe Rabbeinu and Zeis Chukas? The Moshe Rabbeinu's conscious reality is the level of Atzilus. That's Moshe Rabbeinu's conscious reality. Our conscious reality is the fourth world, this world, created physical world. There's two created worlds that are metaphysical. And there's a physical created world that you and I live in, and we walk around in. And that's our conscious reality. Moshe Rabbeinu's conscious reality was a world that's completely godly. It's not even created. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu understood the intellect of paraduma. Right? Where does the intellect of paraduma sit? That level of the prototypical chok, that which is beyond human understanding. Where is there an expression of the chokhmah of a Kadosh Baruch Hu in paraduma? Only in godly reality. Not in any created reality whatsoever. The wisdom of that, the intellect of that particular mitzvah, the will of that mitzvah is revealed to you and I. What does God want? We know. Paradum wants a red heifer. Know how to do it. The chokhmah of it, the intellect of it, absolutely, completely, and totally transcendent of our understanding. It's transcendent of the understanding of any created being. Even an angel can't understand it. Where does that understanding rest? In a place called Atzilus, a world of godliness. It's a world of godliness. What's there? If you had to define Eilam Atzilus, what would you say? What's the unique reality that exists in Eilam Atzilus? The world of emanation.
The 10 spheres.
10 spheres. That's where the 10 spheres come into a state of revelation. It's godly. It's all godly. Okay? That's where Moshe Rabbeinu lives. That's where his conscious reality is. That doesn't mean he's not aware of the fact that there's other things. Just like you and I consciously exist within the realm of physical reality, but we're conscious of the existence of metaphysical and godly reality. I just don't experience that. I experienced the taste of the coffee and I'll have to make a decision today whether I'm going to take a strawberry yogurt or not. If there are, I might. Right? If I take a pudding, I'll only take a vanilla. My coffee is not taking the chocolate. Right? His coffee is not to take the chocolate. Right? His coffee these days is different than it used to be. Right? Really, Rabbi Gafni, who was the Rosh Yeshiva in Kfar Chabad for many years, it was the only yeshiva for Bali Tshuva here in Eretz Yisrael for many years. So he's a very special person. So he was once for bringing a number of friends of mine learned there, and he was once for bringing with the Baruch. He said, "What's his kafia today?" Now this was 40 years ago, where there was bounty, but in Eretz Yisrael a lot less than now. Eretz Yisrael was certainly, just talking about it with the cab driver back from Meshach Zav's Shiva yesterday. That the street I lived on when we got married, it'll be 43 years on Sunday, the street that we lived on, so we had a car. Why do we have a car? Because our father bribed his children to finish college. And he told us, if you finish college, I'll buy you a car. So now what did that mean? Thinking that we were going to stick around Vancouver. Okay, for $1,200, he'll buy us an old car, right? For $1,200 in those days, you could get a nice old car. A brand new Toyota Corolla was $1,900. Okay, so right, a brand new one. It was a box. It was, it wasn't a nice fancy, but it was a brand new Toyota Corolla. I remember my neighbor bought one. It was $1,900. A kid my age, and we were like shocked. He said it was $1,900. Okay. But then we moved there as well. So they're getting a used car. That's ridiculous. We had rights as Olim, so we got a new car. My poor father. We got a new car. A $6,000 Subaru, brand new Subaru station wagon, 1982, cost $6,000. There were 3 cars on the block. All Americans who had bought their cars with the rights that Olim get. Right? Michael Jablinowitz was my chavrusa for Nigla in the morning, and Dov Zippel was my chavrusa for Smicha in the afternoon. The 3 of us had cars. The 3 Americans on the block had cars. Why? Well, because they bought them for half the price. So we had cars. Right? Zippel had a Peugeot, and Michael had a Subaru, and I had a Subaru, because that's what you bought. That's what there was. Okay. Now, Baruch Hashem, that same street, sometimes I take our car to park on that street and walk to the train to come here. If my wife leaves me in the car, you can't find a place to park on the street. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible to find a place to park. Packed. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. I'm not, this is not a political broadcast, but if there's a guy walking, he's still walking around, but he's been here for the last 30 years. His name is Bibi Netanyahu, and it's all because of him, because he knows how to he just knows how to make an economy work. And how everybody has a car, it's a whole different world. But even back then, there was still a lot more Gashmias when Rabbi Gafni made this statement than in Russia 100 years before that. And what did he say his coffee is for our generation, which is a fascinating thing to say? Eat healthy food. That's his coffee. Just eat healthy food. You're not going to eat. You're going to be. You're going to eat the buckwheat groats all week long, like Shmuel Munkus. You're going to eat the buckwheat groats all week long, and then eat your mas meat also. You're not going to eat all week, and then you have a piece of chicken on Shabbos. No, not Shayach to our generation. Right? It's all there's. The Abisha gave us all this bounty for a good reason. Okay, so what do? Eat healthy. Eat healthy food. Don't eat junk. Okay, well, then that's his kafir.
How would you translate his kafir?
His kafir is subduing the Yetzer Hara, right? Which is definitely a function of bittul yesh, because I have a Yetzer Hara. I'm aware of me. I'm aware of this. That's all Yehuda Tata. Expressing the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the context of the created world. Now, interestingly enough, what level of Hanukkah is that relevant to? Did the Rebbe just tell us?
The war.
The war. That's a war. It's a battle. There's really a world, and it makes a lot of noise, and I feel very connected to it. But I hopefully do the battle to realize that my experience in that world is not about taking advantage of everything the world has to offer in terms of the gashmias of it, the physicality of it, the material nature of it, but rather to take advantage of every opportunity the world offers in terms of all the for all intents and purposes, infinite amount of mitzvahs and good deeds that could be done down here in Olam Hazeh. And this is and we'll see later in the mind, this is the place to be. Okay, so Yehuda Tata is that, and it's a battle. It's a milchama mamish. There's an enemy. We have to fight the enemy. We have to be strong in doing that. We can't give in. It's hard not to give in. I was going to talk about that in an astounding way later in the Mimer, based on what we saw earlier in terms of Yechidah Shebenefesh. We'll see the Rebbe talks about our avoid in just an astounding way later on in this Mimer. Okay, that's a battle. That's the milchama. What's the milchama? What's the lashon in Chassidus? How to explain all that? Hislavshus. What is hislavshus? One thing clothed in another thing. In other words, something is expressing itself through something else. Okay? How does God express himself in this world? Hislavshus. He's clothed in the world and is thereby, to a certain degree, hidden by those garments, hidden what we call kelim, vessels. I might not see him in the vessel. Right? Because the vessels in this world look like that. They don't let you see the godly light in them. Right? If you look like that, you can see. If you look from above. And if you look at the world that way, you don't see any godliness. You don't see there's anything in here. Right? There are worlds where you do see very clearly the godliness that's vitalizing that world, which that bottle might be a mushal for that world, for the world of Bria, where it's very clear that this world, this world is only a veneer that's hiding the godly light that's vitalizing the world. That's obvious in the upper metaphysical worlds. Where the neshamas go to a place called Gan Eden. So Gan Eden is in either Elam HaYitzir or Elam HaBria, lower Gan Eden, upper Gan Eden. So when the neshama is there, it experiences unbelievable pleasure in the revelation of God there. Incredible pleasure. A pleasure that's impossible to experience in this world. One moment of that pleasure is greater than, as what Chazal is saying, a mission in Pirkei Avos, 4th chapter. One moment of pleasure in that world is more than all of the pleasure that could possibly be experienced in 6,000 years of the world's history by everybody who's ever been in the world, intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual pleasure. All of that, one moment in Gan Eden is greater than all of that. Wow. Must be pretty good up there. Okay. Revelation. Why are things revealed? There is there's actually, interesting enough, an existence of yesh up there. There's created reality, but it's completely bottle. It doesn't see itself as anything but a vehicle to reveal godly light. So it's like that bottle. That bottle is revealing what's in it. It's not hiding what's in it. This bottle is saying, aren't I a nice bottle? Don't I have a nice color? Don't I have a nice crest? Look at my nice crest. Aren't I cool? I'm just such a nice bottle. I love myself. Look at me. I just wish this nudnik who owned me didn't scratch me and bang me a few times, because I would look so much nicer, right? I don't know who this nudnik is, right? Oh, he put his name on me, the chutzpah. He covered me up with his name. What a chutzpah, right? Okay, this is Eilam Hazeh, this bottle. Anything in it? Yep. I hope I'm not messing whatever's up in there. This is a delicate tea that only Amnon has, and I shook it up and I completely destroyed all of the metaphysical stuff going on in this tea. Okay? So this thing, what does it say? I am a yesh. Absolute yesh. Right? He doesn't reveal anything but himself, and he will not let anybody in where he is. No, that's yesh. Where do you see that most powerfully? In the physical world, right? In the metaphysical world, created by God, that are yesh, created reality. It's still a yesh, but it's a yesh that's batel. Why? Because it doesn't reveal itself. It reveals the godly light giving it existence. It's a yesh, but it's batel. The ultimate in bittul yesh is in Elam HaBria. That's where the bottle looks like that. Our mashal for Elam Yitzira is a Sprite bottle. It lets you see through it, but it has its own color. It has a little bit of its own personality. So, personality and bittul are not opposite each other, okay? A person who's bittul actually has a greater personality than anybody else because he's actually allowed to express himself because he's not worried about what everybody else is going to think. He's just worried about connecting to the truth, which means the truth of himself also, who he really is and what he's really all about and what he's supposed to be doing. Right? So unless you're a little bittul, you're not going to go as a 22-year-old with a 21-year-old wife and maybe a 1-year-old baby and go set up shop in some town in the middle of nowhere where everybody thinks you look weird. Unless there's a little bit of bittul there. Because if all you care about is everybody thinking that you look okay, well, this is the wrong place to go. Go to Crown Heights and everybody will think you look normal. Here, everybody thinks you look weird. And you do look weird for everybody else there. Okay, so there has to be a little bit of bittul to do that. That means I can actually express who I am because I'm bittul. And if all I care about is what other people think, I'm not going to do that. Right? Rabbi Zalman Posner once said an amazing thing. It's the opposite of a conformist. So what does everybody say? A nonconformist. Right? No. What does a conformist do? He looks around and sees what everybody's doing. And what does he do? He conforms to that. What does a nonconformist do? He looks around at what everybody's doing. He does the opposite. He's also completely guided by what everybody else is doing, just in a negative way, not in a positive way. What's the opposite of a conformist? An idealist.
A what?
An idealist. Someone who has an ideal of what's true. That's what he does. Do people do it? Yes, still does. People don't do it. Still does. Doesn't make any difference. It's an amazing idea because you would just think intuitively a nonconformist. No, he's exactly the same as a conformist. He looks around and sees, well, what's everybody doing? Now the nonconformists all end up getting together and looking alike. Purple hair and all the weird stuff, right? Oh, I'm not conforming. Yeah, right. Let's take a picture of all you people, please, so we're not conforming, right? How in the world did you all decide exactly the same shade of purple? Who's the ultimate? Who's the opposite of conformist? A chassid. Yeah, absolute opposite. Right? Hopefully, I mean that doesn't mean everybody who's in the book and they have a phone number in a book. It means the person's real chassid. What's that person interested in? Emes, truth. What is it? Emes is Emes. I'm aware he's in Crown Heights or he's in Peoria, Illinois, or he's in Kathmandu. It doesn't make any difference. Emes is Emes. And what's he going to be doing in that place? He'll be living that Emes. And in Kathmandu, what does that mean? I don't know. Make a seder for people. Biggest seder. I don't know if it's still the biggest seder in the world, but it was for 30 years. Kathmandu had the biggest seder in the world. It's like the most ridiculous thing imaginable. Okay.
Where's Kathmandu?
Nepal, up in the mountains. Asi Spiegel went there as a bacher. Asi Spiegel went there as a bacher to make a seder. Some of the Rebbe sent him to make a seder, and he started the seder, and it ended up being the biggest. I mean, all of the kids who travel in the East, they all gravitate to Kathmandu for seder because they know that's going to. There's thousands of kids at the seder in Kathmandu. It's crazy. Right? Okay. Because Emes doesn't care whether you're in Kathmandu or you're in the middle of Brooklyn. I mean, what does it matter? Emes is Emes. Now, that's bittul a yesh to the extent that I'm aware of my existence very powerfully. But I'm trying to express that existence in terms of God's will. And that's called Yichud Tator. That's Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuse. He's the Melech. Therefore, I'm a subject. But that doesn't, Ein Melech B'lo Am. There's no such thing as a king without a people. So there's an Am, there's a people. But the people are bottled to the king. Right? So on the passport, it should say, we checked this out, I don't remember if it still does, but in the old days it did. Right? Canadian passport used to say it also. The British passport, I hope it still says it. Right? That the American passport says, please let, I think it says the citizen, right? Please let the citizen of our country enter into your, something like that, right? Something along those lines, and it's signed by the Secretary of State. British passport, in the old days, I think it still does, said, please allow my subject entry into your country. Oh, signed by whom? The Queen. I mean, I guess now there's some signed by the king, but we don't want to go there. We're going to still hang out with the queen. Right? She was great. I loved the queen. I waved my little flag. I looked it up. Remember, guys? I went grade 1. I waved my flag. My little Union Jack waved it on Granville Street as she drove by. I was young and she was also young. Matter of fact, she was alive. That was much right? Okay. Right? So that's bittul yesh. I am, but I'm a subject to a king. But I am. But my life is all about being a subject to the king, to expressing what the king wants to happen in his realm. Okay. That's why when the Tsar was overthrown in Russia, so Mordechai Haradoker was Mendel Haradoker was a chassid of the Rebbe Rashab, was in the Frierdiker Rebbe afterwards. So he was very upset. David Haradoker, I'm sorry. Rav David Haradoker, he was very upset. He said, why now, when word got to him that the Tsar had passed away, what did he say? Uy, now there's no mashal for malchus. Now there's no parable for kingship. People won't know what it means that God's a king. They'll think they have a vote. Democracy is a wonderful system to live under. There's no question. I'm not bashing democracy, but it takes its toll on two things. Belief in God and family. Belief in God is not democratic, and family is not democratic. Family is not a democratic unit. It is an autocratic unit. Parents say and children do. Democracy has destroyed that unit because it's not democratic. And so people actually call their parents by their first name. No, Isser Doraisa, like eating bacon. Calling your parent by the first name is like eating bacon, because he's not your friend, he's your father. And you have to listen to what he says. Unless he tells you to go learn in R you're still allowed to come to Mayanot. No? Seriously, you don't. And if you want to go to Mayanot, then if you want to go to R and he says Mayanot, you're allowed to go to R You're one of the few things you're allowed to actually disagree with your father about is where you're going to go learn Torah. Right? Why? Because a person has to learn where his heart feels at home, where his heart desires, which is fascinating. Okay, so if your father says go learn in this yeshiva, a son is allowed to say I want to learn there. Minotaur, mutter. But if a father says, gee, it's cold today, it's 85 degrees, they don't say, no, Dad, it's hot. That's also an Issur D'Oraisa. You say, oh, I'm not cold. You're contradicting. He says he thinks, so-and-so is the greatest political leader in history. How can you say such a thing? Oh. Stay out of it. Okay. Down here, it's a milchama. It's a milchama down here in the realm of Yehuda Tata. So therefore, Yehuda Tata is relative to the milchama. Yehudi Ilah, we have a few more minutes. Yehudi Ilah is a level of transcendent godly reality that is, we'll see, the source of the world, but what's absolutely apparent is not so much the world, but the godliness that is its source. Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke. Right? As opposed to Shem Elokim. Shem Elokim, Bereshis Bara Elokim. And the word bara, create, in Chassidus is explained as hitlavshut, to be clothed in, to be expressed through. So how is Shem Elokim, interesting enough, a name of God that's written in the plural? Why? Well, because it's the source of plurality. It's the source of a reality that isn't echad. Doesn't seem to be echad. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that reality comes from Shem Elokim. That aspect of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that can reveal itself in finitude. Finitude means many, by definition, because one thing ends and another thing begins. Whereas Shem Havaya is the source of the infinite light, and so what I'm aware of is only God's existence. Bittul b'mitzias. My existence, mitzias, is one of bittul. That's a tzaddik. That's Yehudi Ilah. That's upper level unity. That's Hashem Echad. That dalet the four corners of the world, Ches, the world and the 7 levels of heaven are all completely bottled to Echad, to the Aleph, to the one. The Shulchan Aruch's understanding of Hashem Echad and Shema Yisrael. Right? That it's all completely, it's all the Eibishter. It's not so much the world is the place where you serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is true, obviously, but that's Yehuda Tata. The world is a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem Echad. Vein Sheni. So that's the ore in the cup, so to speak. Right? Yehuda Tata is the cup, is the cup realizing that it doesn't exist to hide what's in it, it exists to reveal what's in it. But there's a cup, and there's what's in it. Yehuda Ilah is the cup and the what's in it, it's all the same. It's all Elokus. It's all Kadosh Baruch Hu. What's that? That's Elam Atzilus. We said that this cup is a mashal for Elam Hazai Gashmi, for the physical world, right? Because it's a kli, a vessel that hides godliness. Right? The Sprite bottle will be a kli, it will be a mashal for Elam Yetzira. It allows you to see what's inside, the godliness that's the true existence, but colors it a little bit with its own personality, so to speak, its own yeshus. The Coke bottle will be Elam Abriya. It lets you see exactly what's in it, doesn't color it in any way, shape, or form. But there's still a bottle and what's in it. What was our mashal for Elam Atzilus?
Ice.
The ice cup. What's an ice cup? What's the cup? H2O. What's in it? H2O. This is H2O in a solid form. This is H2O in a liquid form, but it's all H2O. So to speak, what's the kli in Elam Atzilus? It's also godly. The kli is the Eibishter. What's that? 10 spheres. Godly chesed, godly gvura. It's all him. There's him in infinite reality, that's called light, and there's him in finite reality, that's called kli, that's called vessel. Okay. That's Yehudi law. What's that relevant to? The Pach Shemen. Finding it. Finding it is very interesting. The language is finding. And in Chassidus, the idea of a matzia, what's a matzia? A matzia is something I didn't necessarily work for, it just showed up. Like when in halacha, the idea of a matzia, right? You found something. What does that mean you found it? Were you looking for it? Well, no. It's not yours. Right? Shalom's book. I find Shalom's book, it says Shalom's name in it. So I go, oh, I found Shalom's book. It just happened. I didn't have to do anything. So I'll take it back to him. That's a mitzvah. Right? So now, it is true that actually there's badku v'matzu. They checked around and they found. But the effort involved in finding the Pach Shemen was nothing compared to the effort involved in the Milchama. The Milchama was mamish a Milchama with an enemy that was there and big and strong and many. Okay. And they overcame that enemy. That's the first level, Yehuda Tata. That's Chav Dalet. That's Baruch Shem Kvod Malchus Eliyel Void. The second level is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Bittul b'Metzias. Yehudi law, upper level unity. Just a revelation of godly reality. They found the Shemen with relatively little effort. Why? Because there's not such a powerful force against them, so to speak. There's no war. What's that similar to in terms of what we learned in Pada B'Shalom? Learning Torah as opposed to davening. Davening's the battle. Right? Try to get your nefesh bamis to tell God that you love Him is very hard because you might not, and so davening is very difficult. Learning Torah, all you have to do is sit and read the words, and generally human beings enjoy intellectual activity. The intellectual activity happens to be godly, and so I'm elevated to a very lofty state of connection to God by virtue of doing this activity, which is fairly enjoyable. It's an interesting idea here. Just happens to be this interesting idea. Isn't a novel written by some guy. It's an idea written by either holy people called Gemara or ultimately by the Eibishter, which also the Gemara is ultimately all the Eibishter. Okay, so when you sit and learn those words, what are you doing? You're completely and totally connected to the Eibishter, even though you're also elevating whatever reality you're talking about, even though you're not encountering that reality in any way, shape, or form. You're sitting quietly in Zal with a cup of tea, and you're discussing people signed on documents in a Beis Din, or you're discussing an ox goring a cow in a field. And you're elevating the ox and elevating the cow, even though you're not smelling either of them. Though there have been days around here where you have actually smelled them. But that was a one-off, right? Hopefully that won't happen again, right? But okay, so you're not encountering that reality. You're just elevating that reality in a peaceful and calm way. Oh, so that's Talmud Torah. So that's more the expression of finding the Pach Shemen. They came into contact with an incredibly lofty and transcendent state of godly reality. This Pach Shemen that was sealed with the seal of the Kohen Gadol. That miracle. Very different than the war. A miracle. Definitely something supernatural. There's no question about that. Right? We'll see it also is connected to the world to a certain degree, because there's going to be a level completely beyond that. That's the third level. But it's connected to the world to a certain degree, but it's clearly miraculous, and it doesn't involve an incredible battle with the world. Winning the war, that was a battle against worldly forces. Finding the Pach Shemen was just a revelation of godly forces. Right? So that's Yehudi law. That's the higher level unity. Okay? So now, let's read these words again.
Rabbi,
Time to stop, but we're just going to read the words again, yeah.
and davening is lower level of unity?
What?
Davening is lower level of unity?
It's not a matter of lower or higher. Davening is a battle.
Yeah, because it was the 24th.
Because what do you have to do? Well, the 24th was the battle.
Yeah.
Those are two different, you're mixing up two different things. We were talking about something else that we learned earlier in terms of two different levels of avodah. They're similar to this idea. Davening is a battle. Learning Torah is not a battle. Now, I have to concentrate, obviously, but I don't think most of us feel that we sit down in front of a book of Torah, we read two words, and then immediately start thinking about something other than what's written on the page. Right? Whereas when we open up a siddur, that's exactly what happens. Right? If we get 3 words in, we've done well. Right? Okay. Why? Well, it's completely different avodah, because you're battling, you are directly confronting your animal soul when you're trying to get your animal soul to daven. Because you're trying to get your animal soul to do something it's not naturally inclined to do. Praise God. Learning Torah, your animal soul, if it weren't learning Torah, would be reading something else, right? I mean, you might be reading a magazine. It might be reading some idiocy on the internet, but it's going to be reading something. I mean, people read things, right? Look at things, watch things, something. They're constantly encountering things with their intellect and thinking about it. Okay, so you're encountering a sugya and Gemara and you're thinking about it. Well, that's a natural human thing to do. It happens to be godly. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. So I encounter this godliness without a tremendous opposition. There is some opposition, but nothing like davening. Davening, my goodness gracious. It's hard. Yiddishkeit would be relatively easy if we didn't have to daven. What would be so hard? Right? I think most of us find the hardest thing to do well. I mean, not that we don't do it, but do we do it well? I think the thing most of us think we do worst is davening. We're not very good at that. Why? Well, it's hard to get your nefesh habahamis to actually want to completely focus on its love for God. Why is that hard? Because I might not love God. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do everything He asks me to do, but I might love myself more. Still like the strawberry pudding, or whatever it is. It's not pudding, whatever it is. Strawberry pudding, that's fat. Strawberry yogurt. Oh, it's yogurt. Yogurt's good. Yogurt's holy. Yogurt's yeah, it's healthy. Yogurt. Okay. So now let's just, again, I know it's late, I'm sorry. Let's just quickly read through these words again, so now we'll understand what we're reading. Nekuda Zabir B'zeh B'mayim. Lower level unity, seeing godliness within the context of physical created reality. Experiencing and appreciating the transcendence of God, so it's not so much we're going to see it. There is a certain relationship to the world, but the godly light, as opposed to God found in the vessels, but the godly light itself. That's Yichud Ilah. V'zeu shanes t'nitzachon ha'milchama. That's why the miracle of the battle, of the war, hayibachaf dalet kislev. That's on the 24th, which we're going to see is Baruch Shem. V'neis t'metzias pach Hashem and hayibachaf hey. Why? Ki mispar chaf dalet, the number chaf dalet 24, roimes hints al Yehuda Tata. Experiencing godliness within the context of the physical world and realizing the physical world was created by HaKadosh Baruch with a purpose in mind. Keneged chaf dalet oisius, and that's all Baruch Shem kavod malchusa li'elam voed. Recognizing HaKadosh Baruch is king. Ein melech b'lo am. There is no king without a people. Okay, so we're the people. We exist. We're real. We're down here. God, the creation of the world is in no way, shape, or form an illusion. It's not an illusion. It's a certain level of existence. Absolute existence? Absolutely not. Existence with a small e. But does the world have existence? Yes, it says in the Torah. But Eishus bar Elokim es hashamayim es haaretz. The Torah doesn't lie. God created heaven and earth. So there's a thing called heaven and earth. Does it have absolute existence? No. Because absolute existence is a more transcendent godly level than that, because that only exists by virtue of the fact that God gives it existence and continues to give it existence. And were the Eibishter to decide in one moment, chas v'shalom, to decide to take that thing out of existence, it would disappear as if it was never there. Okay, but Baruch Hashem, he likes it. So we're still here. Okay. They exist, we exist. That's Baruch Hashem. U'misbar chafei, remez ha-Yehudi ilah, keneged chafei ha-Isis, the pasuk Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That corresponds to the 25 letters in the pasuk Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and the nace of Haspakas Hashem and the Shemona Yomim, the nace where the Shemin lasted for 8 days, that began Sheisra b'chavav b'kislev. That's the third level, which we didn't discuss yet, that which we'll see by Hashem. I'm not sure about Sunday. There has to be an official decision as to Sunday, because I assume people are going to go to Farbrengens, Motzi Shabbos, these, Farbrengens happening in Binyanei U'uma and all this. So the Yeshiva will make a decision about Chassidus Sunday, and I'll let people who aren't on that WhatsApp know. Okay? If there's no class Sunday, we'll pick up Monday. The third level is Chavav, and we'll see what that is. And that's going to be a transcendent level of godliness that has nothing to do with the world, completely transcendent with the world. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Rabbi, at the risk of being
What? I'm sorry? Hold on one second.
This is the next job.
Okay. What?
at the risk of